All right, now that Dad's gone, I'll be the one to distribute the inheritance.
After my husband David passed away and the funeral was over, our eldest son, Mike, immediately started talking about the inheritance.
What? Why should you be the one to do it?
Seeing the puzzled look on the face of his younger brother Kevin, Mike gave a sly smile.
Well, Dad's death was so sudden, he didn't leave a will, right? So, as the eldest, it's up to me to distribute it.
At Mike's words, I could only stare in astonishment.
First, I'll inherit all of Dad's real estate. Mom can have this house, and Kevin will get whatever's in Dad's bank account.
I exploded at Mike's selfish words. All this time, David had been sending money every month to support Mike and his wife because of their carelessness with finances. Yet, Mike seemed to forget all the kindness, not even mourning David's death, but only focusing on money. At that moment, Kevin made a suggestion to me. And it was then I decided to get back at the selfish couple. My name is Laura, and I'm 75 years old. I've been married to my husband David, a former office worker, for 50 years. I gave birth to our eldest son, Mike, when I was 27. Experiencing childbirth and parenting for the first time was a series of unfamiliar challenges, and it was so hard that I almost gave up. 3 years later, I gave birth to our second son, Kevin. You might think the second time around would be easier with some experience, but instead, the parenting struggles just doubled with the addition of another child. Raising 2 boys was, even in retrospect, an exhausting daily ordeal. However, once the kids got married and it was just David and me again, I began to miss those busy days. Though just an office worker, David earned enough to support our family of 4 comfortably, so we never struggled financially. After the kids graduated from college and our household finances eased, David started investing in real estate. I don't know the details, but he's made arrangements to ensure we have income for our retirement, so he wants me to feel secure. I respected and trusted David so much, and I thought we were set for a peaceful retirement without financial worries. However, reality wasn't so kind. Our serious son, Mike, failed his job search and started spending his days drinking and wasting money. Mike had always been a good student and attended the highest-ranked high school in our county, where he maintained decent grades. The neighbors praised him as a son to be proud of, and he seemed pleased about it too. For college, he moved to New York and attended a fairly well-known private university. As parents, we were proud of Mike and had no doubts he would land a job at a reputable company. However, once he left his hometown for New York, Mike was hit with the reality. There were many people who were more capable than him, and despite attending numerous job interviews at prestigious companies, he failed each one. Eventually, he returned home and got a job at a decent company. Apparently, a few of his middle school classmates worked at the same company. He ended up working under a classmate who had attended a much less competitive high school and had entered the workforce sooner after junior college. Whether this hurt Mike's pride or not, he began to drink to the point of losing his memory daily.
Mike, it's bad for your health to drink so much. Stop it.
What? Shut up, old man. Just lend me some money instead. My salary's too low to even go out drinking.
I just lent you money recently. I can afford to lend you tens of thousands of dollars every time.
Then Mike smashed the glass he was holding.
So you have a money to spare, but you won't lend any to your own son. I get it. You don't care about me because I failed in my career. Sorry for not being your pride and joy.
That's not true at all.
So you'll lend it to me, right?
David pondered for a moment and reluctantly handed Mike some money. Being physically large and strong, I couldn't oppose Mike, and all I could do was clean up the broken glass. Mike seems to feel inferior to his younger brother, Kevin. Kevin graduated from the school at a local national university and is now working as a lawyer. Both Mike, who works in a general company, and Kevin, who works as a lawyer, are precious sons to me. I think they are both admirable. However, no matter how much I say this to Mike, he just pushes me back. Kevin married a woman he had been dating since college and now lives nearby. However, Mike, even past the age of 30, still spends his days drinking and is flamboyant with women. Bad rumors about him have started spreading around the neighborhood. As he was living his life by borrowing more than $1,000 from David every month, I couldn't help but feel anxious about his future. Then, when Mike turned 38, he brought home a woman named Mary, saying he wanted to marry her.
Meeting Mary changed me. I've been too dependent on you guys until now. But from today, as a man, I plan to take care of Mary.
Seeing Mike smile calmly, I was relieved that he had finally changed for the better. Mary was 23 years old, 15 years younger than Mike. At the time, marriages with a significant age difference were rare, and I had my concerns. However, I was overjoyed that Mike wanted to be independent, and I blessed their marriage. But that was a mistake. Mary turned out to be very extravagant with money. 2 weeks after they got married, Mike and Mary came to our house and asked for money.
We're planning a honeymoon trip, but we're short on cash. Could you lend us some?
Where are you planning to go?
Mary wants to go to Italy.
Mike and Mary were looking at each other happily.
Italy's far and travel is expensive, right? Why not choose something more within your means, like a domestic trip?
What? A domestic trip for a honeymoon? Unbelievable. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Isn't it normal to fly first class to go abroad? David, you're wealthy. Why are you being stingy? If you have the money, just lend it to us right away.
Mary said this without any shame. Mike didn't reprimand her. Instead, he nodded deeply in agreement with her words.
Really, Dad has always been stingy. You have the money, so stop being so tight. Mom and you don't really spend much anyway, right?
Exactly. It's a waste not to use money. We'll spend it for you.
Seeing Mary's beaming smile gave me a headache. Mary was unlike anyone I had ever met before, and I didn't know how to deal with her. The two of them wouldn't listen and kept saying it was natural for David, who has money, to share it with them since they don't have any. Not just for the honeymoon, but they would often run out of money and come to our house asking for loans. Before I knew it, David had started sending money to Mike and Mary every month, like an allowance.
When will this kind of life end?
David was exhausted as he muttered that. Although our younger son Kevin tried to talk sense into Mike, Mike avoided him, wouldn't answer calls, and didn't reply to emails. Ultimately, even after Mike turned 40, David continued the financial support. Suddenly, that way of life came to an abrupt end. David passed away from an aortic dissection without any warning. I couldn't accept this sudden departure. No matter what I was doing, memories of David would flood back, and I couldn't stop the tears. While I was consumed by grief, it was Kevin who took care of the funeral arrangements and other necessary tasks. Despite his own grief, Kevin managed everything from arranging the funeral home to contacting relatives, ensuring the funeral went smoothly. Surrounded by former colleagues, neighbors, and longtime friends, David was sent off to heaven. Then, back home from the funeral home, as we sat drinking tea as a family, Mike suddenly stood up.
All right, now that Dad's gone, I'll be the one to distribute the inheritance.
What? Why should you be the one to do it?
Well, Dad's death was so sudden, he didn't leave a will, right? So, as the eldest, it's up to me to distribute it.
I was dumbstruck and could only stare at Mike as he spoke.
First, I'll inherit all of Dad's real estate. Mom can have this house, and Kevin will get whatever's in Dad's bank account.
There isn't much money in David's account. At most, about $5,000. The several $100,000 David had saved over the years, as a frugal man, had all been converted into allowances for Mike and Mary. Mike is aware of this and is probably trying to leave Kevin with only the small amount of money in the account for inheritance.
Kevin is making good money anyway, right? No problem for him. And Mom, you don't have much longer to go, so you don't need money, and I'll take it. Okay.
I exploded at Mike's selfish words. So, no more financial support from now on.
What? Old lady, you might as well drop dead too.
At Mary's words, Kevin sighed deeply. Then he said something shocking.
All right, then. Mom and I will do without any inheritance. We'll renounce our claims.
Kevin, what are you saying?
It's okay.
As I raised my voice in surprise, Kevin whispered in my ear.
I don't really need the money, and I'll take care of you, Mom. Let Mike and Mary have all of Dad's estate. They can even live in this house if they want to.
At Kevin's words, Mike's eyes lit up.
Kevin sure is understanding. Just don't come back later asking for a share of the inheritance. Okay.
Of course. Just one condition. Can I handle the inheritance proceedings? I know plenty of accountants.
No problem at all. That's actually perfect. With Dad's estate, we can live it up.
Yeah, there's a bag I've been wanting. And I want to go on a trip.
Mike and Mary went home discussing all the things they wanted to do with the inheritance. I glared at Kevin. Why would you say something like that? Even after Dad died, Mike shows no sadness and only thinks about money. I don't want him to have any inheritance, and this house is filled with precious memories.
It's okay. I have a plan.
Kevin was smirking as he said that.
Let's get back at Mike.
And then, Kevin began to describe his plan for revenge. I was speechless at what he proposed.
You'll help me, won't you, Mom?
I nodded immediately. After all this time, Mike has squandered David's money and hasn't even shown grief at his passing. I no longer love Mike as a son. I was resolved to teach him a harsh lesson. 3 months later, I had moved into Kevin and his wife's house.
All the inheritance is settled, and all of Dad's estate has gone to Mike.
So, everything is ready.
It's all good.
Kevin spoke confidently as we slowly sipped coffee after breakfast. Just then, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. The monitor showed Mike and Mary.
Mike, what brings you here early on a Sunday morning?
It's not about what brings me here. What's this about?
Suddenly, Mike's angry voice boomed. Kevin, unfazed and relaxed, responded,
Don't shout. You're disturbing the neighbors. I'm coming to open the door. Just wait.
When Kevin opened the door, there stood Mike and Mary, looking furious.
Hey, I got a collection notice from the bank. What's this about?
Exactly. We haven't borrowed any money from the bank.
When I called the bank, they said it was money Dad had borrowed. But why do I have to pay it? Explain.
Mike demanded, his face red with anger.
That's obvious, isn't it? Because you inherited Dad's estate.
What? So why am I losing money because I inherited it? It's not about inheritance tax, is it?
Yeah. Besides the inheritance tax, you'll also have to deal with the debts Dad owed. The collection notice is asking for repayment of those debts.
Dad had debts. What are you talking about? Dad was wealthy, wasn't he? His apartments were worth millions of dollars, and he was making tens of thousands every month in rent.
Kevin shrugged in exasperation.
He wasn't exactly in debt. He had taken out loans. It's common among those who invest in real estate. You borrow money from the bank to buy properties and then pay it back with a rental income.
On the day of Dad's funeral, after Mike and Mary had left, Kevin had told me about David's debts. Just 2 months before he passed, he had purchased an apartment worth over $500,000 and had a substantial amount to repay to the bank. Debts are also inherited, so it was suggested that it might be better to renounce the inheritance, and I asked Kevin to handle the proceedings.
If Mom and I claim the inheritance as well, the debt would have been split 3 ways. But since you wanted to inherit everything, Mike, you end up inheriting all the debts as well.
What? What's that all about? Pretending to be rich, but actually just borrowing from the bank. What a pretentious old man.
How can you say such a thing? As I glared at Mary for her words, she clicked her tongue loudly.
Don't get so mad. It's not just any debt. It was a loan. There's rental income, so just make the monthly payments.
It's because we don't have that kind of money that I'm angry. We thought we were going to get a lot of money and even went on a trip yesterday.
We've already spent all our savings, so we don't have any money to pay the bank. You guys should pay it instead.
Ignoring Mike and Mary's demands, Kevin tilted his head.
Why should I have to pay? Isn't the rental income due soon?
We can't wait for that. There are also credit card bills, and it's not enough.
That's your responsibility for spending all the money, isn't it? Why do Mom and I have to clean up your mess?
At Kevin's exasperated tone, Mike and Mary frowned.
Stop acting so superior. You've always belittled me. Don't look down on me.
I'm not looking down on you. It's just common sense, isn't it? If you don't live within your means, you'll end up regretting it.
At Kevin's words, Mike twisted his face in frustration.
I've got it.
At that moment, Mary, who was next to Mike, smiled broadly as she said that.
If there's debt anyway, maybe we should just renounce the inheritance, right? If Laura could do it, so can Mike.
Exactly. You're smart. I'll renounce the inheritance too. Kevin, you handle the paperwork.
At Mike's words, Kevin grinned mischievously.
Unfortunately, you can no longer renounce the inheritance. You can only do so within 3 months. It's been over 3 months since Dad passed away, so Mike, you have no choice but to inherit everything.
What? That's unfair.
That's right. Just getting yourselves out of the debt, you cowards.
I had to suppress my laughter as Mike and Mary stomped their feet in frustration. I hadn't expected everything to go exactly as Kevin had said. Kevin had intentionally waited until the 3 months passed, claiming that the inheritance procedures were taking time to make sure Mike would inherit everything, including the debts. And the moment the 3 months were up, he informed them about the estate, ensuring they couldn't renounce the inheritance.
Legally, only Mike needs to pay back the debt, so we're out of it. If repayment is tough, why not sell the condo and turn it into cash?
If we do that, we'll lose the passive income.
That's true. You either continue paying the mortgage with a rental income or sell the condo now and pay off the debt. It's up to you to decide, Mike.
Mike was fidgeting irritably.
Now that you understand what the collection notice means, can you leave? It's still early in the morning, and I don't want my day off ruined.
At this, Mike and Mary started to panic.
Wait, the discussion isn't over. We don't have money right now. Please, just pay for this month instead.
Sorry, but that's impossible. I've got big expenses this month too.
Don't say that. We're brothers, aren't we? Brothers should help each other out. Kevin, you have a good income and extra money, right?
Then Kevin laughed out loud.
Is that something you, who only thinks of himself, should say, Mike? Weren't you the one who wanted a bigger share of the inheritance? You didn't even help with the funeral arrangements and only bring up being brothers when it suits you.
That's...
Sorry, but I'm not earning money for you, Mike. Dad might have given you money, but I won't be providing any financial support.
Kevin said this as he looked straight at Mike. Despite all the insults Mike had hurled at him over the years, Kevin had never talked back. But it seemed he had been holding back stress all this time. The tone of Kevin's voice, colder than I had ever heard, revealed how much he disliked Mike, who did nothing but play and never made any effort. When Mike realized Kevin wouldn't help, he turned to me in desperation.
Mom, please, can you lend me just a little money?
No way.
Don't say that. I have an idea. Let's live together. Then we can use your pension to pay the bank, and you won't have to worry about your living expenses, right?
Mary looked at me with sparkling eyes as if she had just proposed a brilliant plan, but I had reached my limit. Cut it out. How could I possibly live with someone who told me to just drop dead?
Mary was just joking. Mom, she couldn't have been serious.
Yes, it was just a joke. Don't be mad.
Mike and Mary were sweating as they desperately grabbed my shoulders.
Mom, you must be worried about your retirement, right? You've been a homemaker all your life, so you probably don't have much savings, and I'm working so we won't struggle for food or shelter.
Sorry, but I'm not struggling for money.
What? What do you mean?
Perplexed, Mike and Mary demanded an explanation. Actually, David allowed any leftover money I received for living expenses to be deposited into my account. He told me I could spend it as I pleased, but since I didn't really want anything, it just kept accumulating. Now I have nearly $200,000 saved.
If you have that much money, then lend some to me. Your son is struggling here, Mom.
I was dismayed by Mike's pleading. Can you stop? You didn't even grieve when David passed away, so don't call yourself my son. I told you I won't assist you financially anymore, so I'm not giving you any money.
Please, listen, I've been quiet about it, but I have debts. I wanted a larger inheritance to pay them off. I'm already struggling to make the repayments, and I can't afford to take on Dad's debts too.
I wasn't really surprised by Mike's sudden confession. Despite having an income of around $30,000, he went on overseas trips and dressed in branded clothes from head to toe. I thought the money David lent him wouldn't have been enough. No wonder you're always thinking about money. If you have debt, you should be living more modestly and focusing on paying it back. Despite their debts, Mike and Mary were indulging in luxuries like buying designer bags. They probably used the money they got from David to pay off their debts. It seems they were naively thinking that once they got the inheritance, they could pay off all their debts and then relax.
Mom, help me out. I admit I've been bad in the past. We'll take care of you in your old age. We'll do anything.
I don't need you to look after me in my old age. I have enough money to afford a nursing home, and I have Kevin.
That's right. Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of you. Mike, you should just think about yourself.
Damn it, why is this happening?
Mike pounded the floor with his fists repeatedly. Kevin grabbed his arm and led him to the entrance.
Can you please not involve us anymore? Bye now.
Hey, are you really kicking us out? The conversation isn't over yet. At least lend me the money for this month's debt repayment.
Kevin and I exchanged exasperated glances. All the debts are your responsibility. If you had discussed this with us sooner, we could have helped a bit more, but we can't be kind to someone who tries to swindle money like you.
By the way, even if we're family, lying to borrow money and not paying it back could be considered fraud. You should be grateful you're not being sued.
Fraud. That's not what I intended at all.
Mary covered her mouth and trembled. After realizing what they had done, Mike and Mary quieted down, and Kevin pushed them out the door.
Wait, Kevin, Mom, I was wrong. Please help me.
Please. Don't be mean. Forgive me. I'm sorry.
Mike and Mary were apologizing loudly like schoolchildren, but we didn't respond at all. Perhaps embarrassed by the neighbors' glances, they reluctantly went back home. It seems Mike and Mary ended up selling the condo. But as Kevin predicted, the selling price was lower than the purchase price, and they still have about $50,000 in debt left. Originally, Mike had about $200,000 in debt and seems to have filed for bankruptcy due to difficulty in repaying it. Their house, car, and designer items were seized, and now they are living in a run-down apartment without a bath. And when Mary, who was only after the money, realized they wouldn't get the inheritance, she immediately asked Mike for a divorce.
You can't just divorce me when things get tough.
Mike refused to divorce. They are still arguing about whether to divorce or not, and the situation seems to have gotten quite messy. And I, surprisingly, was able to get back the house I shared with David. The house was put up for sale, and Kevin bought it for me. Honestly, it's a bit old because it's been years since it was built, but it's a precious home where I lived with David and our children. I'm really happy to be able to spend time again in this irreplaceable home. Concerned about me living alone, Kevin and his wife come to visit every week, and my happy life has returned. Honestly, I still get sad thinking about David, but I hold on to the happy memories and cherish the rest of my life.
I'm Ashley, 28 years old. I got married to a colleague who had been working at the same company before me, about 2 years ago. My husband Noah, who is 2 years older, was the one who made the first confession of love. We couldn't have children for a while after getting married, but thinking it was about time given our ages, we started trying to conceive and successfully became pregnant. We're expecting the baby by the end of this year. Now that my morning sickness has settled, I've entered the stable mid-pregnancy stage, so I'm starting to think about various preparations for childbirth. I lost my parents early, so I am deeply grateful to his parents, George and Madeline. They are also eagerly looking forward to the birth of their first grandchild. They live quite in the countryside, so we don't get to meet often, but they always say, "You have to take good care of yourself. Make sure you eat well to give birth to a healthy baby, and send us nutritious foods and fresh vegetables and fruits they grow themselves." Thanks to them, I've recently gained a bit of weight, probably because I've been enjoying too many fresh veggies and fruits now that I'm in the stable period. I have older sister. Her name is Patricia, 32 years old. She's already married and has a cute daughter. My 3-year-old niece, Emily. Noah's big brother, Harry, who is the same age with Patricia, adores her and is already declaring, "I'm not letting her marry off, and anyone who asks for her hand in marriage, I'll knock him out." Patricia just laughs it off, saying, "Silly, isn't he?" Well, it's a lively but good family. Now that I'm pregnant, my sister has become a great mentor, offering me advice.
Ask me anything you don't know, okay?
Since she's experienced, I'm looking forward to learning a lot from her. She also has some baby items she no longer uses, which could help with our expenses. When I go to the gynecologist, my sister Patricia accompanies me. Our doctor, Victoria, is a seasoned female physician. She is kind and trustworthy. Once, we even had Noah join in for a lecture.
First of all, the pregnant woman is the center of everything. Her needs come first.
Oh yeah, is that so?
Noah looked nervous.
Of course, I'm not saying the husband should do all the housework. Pregnant women need some exercise too. However, you shouldn't let her carry heavy items or reach for things on high shelves. Let her exercise moderately, but don't overdo it. That's the basic rule.
I see.
Noah nodded to the doctor's explanation. Don't worry, I can handle cooking and shopping. So, it would help if you could assist with cleaning and laundry. I straightforwardly asked Noah for help.
Well, that's not much different from now. Leave the heavy shopping to me.
He responds with a smile. It makes me genuinely happy that Noah is so proactive in saying such things. I quit my job after getting married, and now I work part-time at a local supermarket, cashiering and stocking shelves for about 3 to 4 hours, 3 days a week, which is easy on my body. Many coworkers who have given birth before are considerate and offer advice. Recently, Noah's job has become busier. Since we worked at the same company, I am familiar with what he does. It's a clerical work, so except for the fiscal year end, there shouldn't be much overtime.
I've been busy because I started a new department. I was put in charge along with some younger colleagues, and they made me the leader.
But I'm worried about him overdoing it.
I have to try hard because I'm going to be a dad.
Just don't overdo it.
Yeah, I'm taking breaks appropriately, so I'm okay.
He reassured me. Then, one day, I got a call from my cousin.
Hey Ashley, I need some advice.
His name is Thomas. He is 2 years younger than me and just got married last year. His wife is Alice. They were classmates and have been dating since high school. He recently found out she's pregnant and often consults me, since I have a bit more experience. So, what do you want to know?
Well, Alice's morning sickness is really bad, and it's hard to watch because she's suffering. She can't eat anything because she can't stand the smell of bread. What should I do?
Silly, isn't it? If she can't eat bread, let her eat cake, right?
That's like saying Let Them Eat Cake by Marie Antoinette, or a cake logic. Anyway, seriously, tell me, how were you at that time?
I just gave up on things that smelled bad and ate what I wanted to eat. Also, I made sure to drink plenty of fluids. Oh yeah, having mint-flavored chewing gum or candy helped me feel better.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Ashley. If anything else comes up, I'll call you.
If my older sister Patricia is mentoring me about childbirth, then my cousin Thomas is my protege. Our houses are close, and since he runs his own business, it's easy for him to find time, so we had many opportunities to meet even before he was married. On the other hand, my husband Noah started working more weekends, saying it was due to his job. He wanted to sort through the documents he collected during the week all at once on his days off. Lately, we've been spending less time together, and I've felt Noah's attitude changing. One night, upset about his frequent holiday work, I complained. Can't you do something about work? You said you'd support me with the housework, but I'm doing it all. My belly has grown so much that even cutting my nails has become a challenge.
This is an important time for my job. Couldn't you support me a bit?
Instead of just ignoring my requests, he started demanding support from me. I understand, but it's hard for me too. My belly is already this big.
I'm trying hard for our child too. Don't just push your own agenda on me.
And what?
I heard you've been meeting a man outside recently.
What? A man? Oh, that's just my cousin Thomas. He helps me with shopping when you're not around.
Cousin, really? It seems like you've been meeting him several times for a while now.
He's family, so of course we meet.
Well, just bear with it a little longer.
We remained somewhat strained as the due date approached. Then the labor pains started, and I headed to the hospital. Patricia accompanied me to the hospital.
The birth canal is already open, so let's go straight to preparations for delivery. After you give birth, you'll be admitted for postnatal care.
Patricia contacted Noah, but he said he was too busy with work to attend the birth or help with the hospital preparations. So, Patricia took care of all the hospital preparations. 5 hours after arriving at the hospital, I successfully gave birth to a baby boy. Despite the excruciating pain, the midwife said it was a very smooth delivery, and seeing my baby's cute face even made me think it was a good experience. That night, Noah came to the hospital.
Give Ashley some praise for her hard work. You should hold him too.
The doctor Victoria spoke to Noah with a smile. I was exhausted in bed, but I imagined Noah's happy face. However, Noah didn't smile and remained silent even as he looked at the baby. Then, Noah muttered something.
Is this really my child?
What? What are you saying? Is that your first question? I was dumbfounded.
He'll grow on her.
Trying to compose myself, I followed up with what Victoria had said. This is our child. Let's work hard to raise him. Even so, Noah was expressionless. Then, suddenly, he said,
Doctor, I have a request. Please do a DNA test on the baby.
What? I was speechless at Noah's words. For a moment, I didn't understand what was happening. Considering a DNA testing, does he really doubt he's the father? That's ridiculous. Victoria was also taken aback.
Well, we can do that, but that's not something you should say on the day of the birth.
She tried to dismiss him, but
Please, by all means.
Noah was adamant and requested the test. Do you doubt me? That's terrible. Really terrible. Postpartum pain forgotten. I shouted loudly.
I just want to know the truth. If it confirms the child is really mine, that's all that matters. I'll be relieved. Or is there some reason you're worried about the test?
Is he suggesting I have something to hide? Really terrible. I'm not asking for gratitude, but demanding a DNA test all of a sudden is the worst. Sensing the futile argument brewing, Victoria intervened.
Let's do the test.
She agreed, albeit reluctantly. I was unhappy, but since I knew the child was definitely mine and Noah's, I decided to accept the challenge if he insisted that far. When Noah left the room, I broke down in tears. I had thought Noah would be happy. Instead, the fact that he doubted me enough to demand a DNA test. Later, as Noah had requested, we did the DNA test and decided to discuss the results when Noah visited the hospital the following weekend. On the day of the report, Noah appeared unusually calm. In the hospital room, Victoria pulled out the report.
I'll just tell you the conclusion.
Okay.
The result of the test shows that the likelihood that Noah is the father of the boy is...
Victoria paused to take a breath, then announced.
0%. This child is not Noah's biological son.
What? I was speechless and nearly fainted. That can't be. I can't think of any reason why. Yet, how could this be? My mind went blank. Noah smirked and said,
I knew it.
Then he said triumphantly,
You're trying to pin a child from an affair on me, aren't you?
And then he pointed at me.
I want a divorce. You're entirely to blame. I'm going to demand a hefty alimony, so be prepared.
With those parting words, he left the hospital room. I was left utterly dumbfounded. I consulted with Patricia and Thomas. Patricia listened to my story quietly and then became indignant.
Being falsely accused like this, it's no joke. We need to give him a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah, I've got it all covered, so you can rest easy. Ashley,
Thomas said, smirking confidently.
This isn't a comforting conversation.
Patricia was angry.
yeah, right.
Thomas chuckled, seemingly amused. I couldn't tell if they were serious or just enjoying my misfortune. Later, I got a call from Noah.
I've decided to go through with the divorce. My parents agreed to. I'm the victim here, so I'll be seeking alimony. Maybe around $30,000.
I'm thinking of leaving it to a lawyer. Is that okay? I informed him.
Fine, but you're paying for the childbirth expenses yourself. I'm not spending a dime on someone else's kid.
Have it your way.
Yeah, I will do as I please. I'm a stranger now. If you can't pay the alimony, I'll take the house and land. As the victim, I have that right.
Noah was adamantly aggressive. That house and land are inheritance from my deceased parents.
I don't care. Anyway, I'm busy preparing for the divorce. I'll contact you again.
I reported Noah's call to Patricia and then we proceeded with our next plan. I was soon to be discharged from the hospital, and my cousin Thomas came to pick me up in his car.
Good job. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better, but I have to keep going for this little one's sake. I gazed down at the small life wrapped in a baby blanket.
Right, I've got it all covered. Let's give that no of yours double, no, triple payback.
We talked about this as we arrived home. My house, which I hadn't seen in a while, looked completely different. Noah had moved all his belongings out. The empty room only had the baby items I had prepared left behind. And there was a note from my husband. The note read, "I'm leaving the house. I won't come back. I'm not returning to my parents' house either, so don't bother looking for me. Only contact me if necessary." If he wasn't going back to his parents' house, I knew where he was headed. Really, he's quick with things like this. I sighed in exasperation. Shortly after, I received a call from Noah. Perfect timing. As soon as I answered, Noah yelled out,
What do you think you're doing? Sending that stuff to my office.
"Oh, about that. Well, since you wouldn't tell me where you are, I had to send it to your office, right?" I responded nonchalantly.
How could you? My boss demanded an explanation, and I had to tell him about our divorce. Thanks to you, the whole office knows, and now everyone is looking at me strangely.
It seemed my plan had indeed caused a stir around Noah. "It's none of my concern. You saw the contents, right? Make sure you come to the lawyer's office. Don't try to run away."
Woo's running away. You'd better be prepared to. I'm ready to fight this through.
Apparently, the notice of content arranged by the lawyer had reached his company. I can just imagine Noah panicking. Yes, Noah's encirclement is nearly complete. And then, we had a discussion about the divorce at the lawyer's office. Noah's parents were also present. I was accompanied by my sister Patricia and her husband. Her husband is Harry. Harry, who works in construction, treats me like his own sister. And then the discussion began. Ashley cheated and had a child, then tried to pass it off as mine and raise it on my money. This is highly malicious, so I demand not only alimony but also compensation for the house and land in Ashley's name. This was Noah's main reason and condition for the divorce. Oh wow, he's quite bold. I was fully prepared and at ease. The lawyer explained.
We understand your story. However, even if the divorce is due to infidelity, property division will occur. And don't expect all your demands to be met. If there's a disagreement between the two of you, it's my job to mediate. I will make a fair judgment based on the facts. Please understand that.
If that's the case, then justice is on my side. Having an affair and giving birth to someone else's child is practically fraud. Should we call the police?
Ashley, that's terrible. We were happy about having a grandchild, and to find out it's not Noah's child.
Doing this makes me sad. The most pitiful one is the child who was born, right? Please make amends and at least raise the child properly.
They all spoke up.
No matter if a lawyer gets involved, what you did can never be forgiven. I'm entirely innocent and a victim. It's crucial how much Ashley reflects and apologizes to me. How about it? Do you feel remorse and are you ready to apologize?
Noah seemed entirely convinced of his victory. Now's the time. No. The one who needs to reflect and apologize is you, Noah.
What did you say?
Taken aback by my unexpected counterattack, Noah stood up suddenly. I continued calmly. Just give it up. I know everything.
What are you saying? I know who your affair partner is. I'll demand alimony from him too.
I decided it was time to present my trump card. Actually, I've invited someone here.
Who is it? One of your accomplices?
Noah shouted, fully ready for battle. I said in a teasing tone. You're not too bright, are you? I'm the victim here, so it's the witness.
A witness?
Thank you for waiting. Please, come in. As I spoke, two people entered through the door. Noah's mouth hung open in shock.
You are. And you are.
Yes, it's Victoria, the gynecologist, and my cousin Thomas.
Hello.
Victoria greeted.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ashley's cousin, Thomas.
Thomas introduced himself.
This guy is Ashley's affair partner. You're cousins, and you had a child together.
Please don't say such rude things. I live nearby, and I was just consulting because my wife Alice is pregnant. I've always seen Ashley like a friend, never as a woman.
Hey, that's a bit rude, isn't it, Thomas? I'll have to scold you later.
I'd like to say my piece soon.
Victoria interjected with a wry smile. Sorry, Victoria, please go ahead. I urged her to explain.
Thank you. So, to put it simply, the baby is undoubtedly Noah's and Ashley's child, according to the DNA test results.
What?
Noah exclaimed in shock.
But at that time, you said it wasn't my child.
You bribed the lab technician to falsify the results. When my husband, who is the hospital's chairman, confronted the technician, he broke down crying and confessed everything. We even recorded that confession.
I might confess to if confronted by her husband.
Damn it.
Noah bit his lip.
Patricia thought the test results were suspicious and brought your hair to request another test. Normally, we don't do that, but I got convinced after talking to her, Ashley's sister, and the retest confirmed the baby is indeed both of yours. And the technician who colluded with you has been fired. It's a matter of our hospital's credibility.
George was shocked by this.
Noah, why would you do such a thing?
George stood up and confronted Noah.
That's,
Instead of Noah, Patricia answered for him.
That's because Noah was the one having an affair?
What?
His parents gasped and were speechless.
When we went shopping in the city, Patricia saw Noah walking with an unknown woman. It was Saturday, and when she checked with Ashley, she said Noah was supposed to be working that day. So it seemed suspicious, and she asked Thomas to look into it.
Turn to, Thomas said proudly.
Yeah, actually, I used to work part-time at a detective agency during my student days, so I'm good at investigations.
He began bragging.
And then we found plenty of evidence of the affair. Here's a recording of that time.
With that, Patricia played the voice recorder. It captured Noah and another woman's voices.
We'll get her DNA test and fake it as someone else's child. That way, it'll serve as evidence of the affair. There's a suitable guy. He's supposedly a cousin, but we have photos and can frame it as an affair. If it works out, I can push all the blame onto Ashley and get a divorce. I'll get alimony, and since she had a child, I can claim the house and land too. I'm the tragic hero. There's no problem with you and me being together. How's that? I'm a genius, right?
More like a villain than a genius, you know. You're like a bad guy from a drama, aren't you?
Their laughter followed on the recording. Stopping the recorder, Thomas added,
Your partner is a younger colleague from your own team at work.
Noah's face turned pale. With such compelling evidence presented, there was no room for him to argue.
Well, now that the facts are clear, it's my turn.
The lawyer said with a smirk. Then, pulling various documents from an envelope, he began to explain.
Here are Ashley's demands. She requests a divorce from Noah. She has stated that she will not pursue the matter of the DNA test falsification, so we will not address it here. We will seek alimony from Noah and the woman he was involved with. Additionally, we will demand property division and child support from Noah.
His parents were utterly stunned by the unexpected turn of events. Noah, intensely questioned by Patricia and me, was utterly devastated. I filled out the divorce papers, signed my part, and had Noah write his portion. The completed divorce papers were promptly submitted by the lawyer. After leaving the office, we celebrated with drinks at a nearby bar, and thus, I divorced Noah. I received a substantial amount in alimony and a lump sum for child support. By the way, I named my son Adam. It seems his parents had advanced the money. Noah was completely cut off from his parents. He is said to be repaying the debt little by little. Noah's affair partner was a woman from his company. Their affair during work hours came to light, and both were dismissed for violating company policies. Abandoned by that woman, he struggled to find new employment and is now working part-time at a gas station. I live with my son, Adam. He's still young, so I've taken a leave of absence to focus on childcare. It looks like we'll manage with the alimony for a while. Adam is adorable, and as I took photos and videos, my cousin Thomas edited them and uploaded them to a video site. This unexpectedly became quite popular. Thanks to the site's popularity, I even started earning money from the videos. The earnings were substantial, so I decided to save for Adam's future. My parenting is supported by those around me. Patricia, of course, and the ladies from my part-time job also helped. Especially the ladies, who would shop at the supermarket on my behalf when I couldn't go out. And the manager would deliver them to my home. In fact, the manager, who was also divorced, was encouraged by the ladies to get closer to me. When Adam turned 1, the manager proposed to me. Despite being a manager, he's down to earth, works hard, and treats everyone equally, which I really appreciated. Since he always delivered groceries to our home, it didn't take long for my fondness to turn into affection. I happily accepted his proposal. Adam had met him many times and was fond of him, and he seemed trustworthy because he cared about Adam. Although I accepted his proposal, we couldn't get married right away and went into a preparation period. Recently, Adam started calling him Dad. It seems I've managed to recapture the happiness I once let go. This time, I'm determined to hold on to this happiness tightly. As I watched Adam's peaceful sleeping face, I made this resolve.
I'm going to live with Dad and new mom, so just get the divorce and leave.
I was shocked when Ryan brought up divorce, and even more so when his affair came to light. Moreover, his son Mark insulted me, and even though I didn't ask, Mark praised his dad's cheating partner.
Nicole is beautiful and kind. She's always smiling and doesn't bother me with unnecessary stuff like someone.
I could be kind if we only met occasionally. As his mother, I thought I had a responsibility to raise Mark. That's why I nagged him to ensure he wouldn't face difficulties in the future. I never imagined it would lead to being told off like this. Fine, let's divorce. I agreed to the divorce and fled the house as if escaping. 3 years later, the misguided parent and child reappeared before me. That's when I finally said it clearly.
You're heartless, even though you were my parent.
Well, yeah, but I don't remember giving birth to you, and we're not related by blood. Mark, flushed with anger, still resembled Ryan. I'm Jasmine, 25 years old. I work as a stylist. I've always loved makeup and clothes. This job is my calling. I had no desire to marry. Rather, I admired cool, single women. But when I met Ryan, I fell for him instantly. Ryan was 35, 10 years older than me. We met in a vintage clothing shop I wandered into. Despite his rough appearance with long hair and a beard, he was a gentle and laid-back, handsome man. I knew right away he was the type of man dangerous to fall for. Ryan, naturally good at communication, was close with others and affectionate. Moreover, he was handsome and socialized a lot with women. In fact, he cheated twice before we married. There were countless other attempted infidelities. Considering that, I'm sure there were other women I didn't know about. The terrifying part was his response when his infidelity was uncovered.
So what? It's just an affair.
How can he be so brazen? What are you saying? Stop it. I yelled and screamed, but he seemed genuinely puzzled as he replied.
No, I mean, it's just an affair.
What? So I'm right to be upset. You're mocking me?
No, it's just an affair, you know, like a fling. But you're the only one I'm serious about, Jasmine.
As if that kind of excuse could ever be acceptable. Every time this happened, I resolved to break up. But ultimately, I couldn't resist his charm, warmth, and comfort. When he proposed, I was so moved I cried, thinking, finally, I'm truly chosen. My parents were mildly against it, but we went ahead and married. Yet soon after our wedding, a shocking truth came to light.
We're living together from today on.
He said it nonchalantly while patting the head of a boy holding a school bag. Wait, who is this kid? I asked with a sinking feeling, and he answered with a smile.
This is my kid, Mark. He's 10 years old.
I knew he was divorced before we got married, but I had never heard about him having a child. Why didn't you tell me?
You never asked me. I would have told you if you asked.
When I pressed him, Ryan responded nonchalantly again. People usually mention these things even if they're not asked. It's important.
Is it? I didn't plan on living with Mark back then, so.
Mark is Ryan's son from his previous marriage, and the ex-wife is getting remarried. So it was decided that Mark would stay with us. And we're newlyweds. Basically, I felt like the kid was being dumped on us. Mark is a stranger to me, Ryan's child with another woman. Honestly, I didn't want to take him in. I'm only 25 years old. Yet suddenly, I'm a mom to a 10-year-old. I couldn't get my feelings to catch up. But I couldn't turn away a mere 10-year-old kid standing in front of me, so we ended up living together. Mark's been through a lot, being tossed around by his parents. I want to get along as best as I can. That's what I initially thought. To make a start at bonding, I asked Ryan about Mark's favorite foods and made them enthusiastically. Tonight's dinner is hamburgers. I made a lot, so there's plenty for seconds. I was good at cooking, so it wasn't a struggle. In fact, I think I liked it. But Mark's reaction was so bad it made me lose confidence.
What is this? It's terrible. Is this a punishment game or what?
It's terrible. I tasted it in a panic, but it was delicious.
It's really good.
Ryan was eating heartily. Maybe it just didn't suit Mark's taste. I'm sorry. If you really can't stand it, there's some ready-made meals.
I'm fine. I'll eat.
His response sounded considerate, but what followed was tough. He kept saying it's terrible, and ate with a look of disgust. It really seemed like a punishment game. Of course, Ryan said nothing.
This tastes awful. Finally, just one more bite to go.
Then don't eat it. But it's hard to say that to a child you've just met. And he might not mean any harm. If it was really just not to his taste, I felt sorry and all I could do was apologize to Mark. I'm sorry.
Well, it can't be helped. I'll just endure it.
And so, without any preparation, I began parenting. Even though he's only 10, having a child made the household chores feel many times harder. And of course, there's still my job as usual. I pleaded with Ryan to help out. Can't you help out a little?
Housework and child rearing are women's work, aren't they?
But Ryan just ignored my words. When I tried to get Mark to help, he laughed it off.
My mom never made me do stuff like that.
Every time he responded like that, it frustrated me. In the end, doing the chores myself was the easiest and fastest. And then, in no time, 5 years passed. Mark turned 15 and had grown up a lot. We got used to each other and could talk without any reservations, like a real family. But I felt it wasn't quite the same as getting along. As usual, Mark still calls my cooking terrible and doesn't help at all with the chores. Moreover, lately, he started to insult my appearance and sense of style every chance he got.
Jasmine, you're a stylist, but your ideas are so lame.
Be quiet. It makes me sad when you talk like that.
Dad has way better taste, even though he's just an old clothes shop clerk.
Surprisingly, Mark seemed to respect Ryan. Though he was awful to me, I wasn't his real mom, and maybe it was just his way of showing embarrassment, so I tried not to take it too seriously. But one day, it became clear that Mark simply disliked me. What did you just say?
Didn't you hear? I want a divorce.
When I got home from working overtime, Ryan brought up divorce while eating the dinner I had prepared. Why all of a sudden? Don't tell me another affair? Ryan nodded in agreement.
You know, Jasmine, you've really changed. Well, maybe it can't be helped since you're hitting 30, but I just don't feel attracted to you anymore.
Mark, opposite Ryan, was sipping soup with one hand on his smartphone. I shouldn't let Mark hear this kind of talk. It was just as I tried to stop Ryan.
Yay, I get it. She really does seem like an old lady. You're right, Dad.
My mind went blank.
Right.
They laughed together. The meal they were eating was one I got up early to make before work. The clothes they were wearing were ones I had laundered. They could relax comfortably in the room because I cleaned it. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Who do you think made me this old lady? You guys pushed all the housework on me.
Jasmine, why are you mad? We're just having dinner.
It's weird to bring up divorce during a family meal. At that point, Mark burst out laughing. When I looked to see why, he was snickering. When our eyes met, he tried to cover his mouth, struggling to hold back his laughter. What are you laughing at?
Are we a family? I don't remember being born to you, and we're not even related by blood.
That's true.
Ryan is also laughing heartily. I felt my face heat up suddenly. Tears blurred my vision. For at least these past 5 years, I thought I was acting as a family member. I attended school events and handled household chores, believing I was fulfilling my roles as a wife and a mother. Yet, none of this seemed to have reached these two.
So you're crying now. Well, anyway, that's how it is. I just don't feel that way about Jasmine anymore.
I couldn't respond, choked by sobs and overflowing tears.
It's such a hassle when you cry.
Ryan sighed. Mark nodded in agreement, then grinned at me as I sobbed.
I'm going to live with Dad and new Mom, so just get the divorce and leave.
And even though I didn't ask, Mark praised his dad's cheating partner. She is 25 years old. She was a model and now works as a beauty therapist. Apparently, she's quite wealthy, giving Mark pocket money every time they meet. I was shocked to learn that Mark had been meeting her multiple times. Maybe this was probably why he started to criticize my appearance.
Nicole is beautiful and kind. She's always smiling and doesn't nag like someone else.
I could be kind if we only met occasionally, but I felt a responsibility to raise Mark as a mother. So I nagged to ensure he wouldn't face difficulties in the future. I never thought it would lead to being spoken to like this. I'm fine, let's divorce. I consented to the divorce and left the house as if fleeing. As a sort of alimony, I received all the modest savings we had. I just wanted to get away from them as quickly as possible. After the divorce, I worked furiously. Previously, I had held back on work, either because of Mark or the household chores. It was a relief not to have to think about that anymore. I have no choice but to work now. Maybe I was being a bit reckless, but thankfully, my work began to increase. Before I knew it, more people were requesting my services. Becoming a mother so suddenly was now a thing of the past. I've come to accept that.
What, Jasmine, you were divorced?
This woman, whose surprised face was even beautiful, is Sophia, the actress I exclusively work for. After 3 years of divorce, I turned 33. She is older than me, around 40 years old. Yet, despite her age, her profound beauty never ceases to amaze me. Yes, that's right. Suddenly introduced to his child, and then out of nowhere, he wanted a divorce. It was really tough.
What? That sounds like something out of a soap opera.
Right? Oh, don't move, please. Your other eye isn't dry yet. Sophia's large eyes sparkled as she urged me to continue. It's really not that interesting, you know? I casually shared the story of my marriage. After hearing everything, Sophia let out a deep sigh.
No way. That's unbelievable, that father and son, after all the care you've given, not a single word of thanks, and to just discard you like that. Unforgivable.
Discard me?
Yes, exactly. If you're juggling housework, childcare, and work, there's no time left to care for yourself.
Coming from Sophia, who works in the public eye, these words carried extra weight. I felt a twinge in my nose. Hearing that from you, Sophia, makes me feel vindicated for those times. Thank you.
Oh no, are you crying? Gosh, you really had it tough.
I can't believe I'm crying at work. I felt remorseful.
Don't worry about it. Let's continue to work together.
Sophia smiled beautifully, her face perfectly made up. After finishing the rest of the work, I headed home, feeling a comfortable fatigue. As I approached my apartment building, I noticed a figure sitting by the entrance. Getting closer, I saw it was a boy in a school uniform. Maybe a high school student? Glancing sideways, I walked past and tried to unlock the lobby door. Suddenly, the boy stood up and said to me,
"Mom?"
He looked down at me with a big smile. I stared at his face for 3 seconds, then tilted my head. Who are you?
What?
His smile faltered as he began to panic. Seizing the moment, I slipped through the auto-lock door.
Hey, wait.
The boy was still shouting, but without looking back, I stepped into the elevator. Despite maintaining a blank expression, my heart was racing. I don't have children. Yet, I recognized the face. That boy must be Mark. He should be about 18 now. The age fits perfectly. Why is he coming to me now after all this time? Since the divorce, I hadn't been in touch with Ryan or Mark. 3 years ago, from Mark's last words, it seemed likely Ryan had remarried. I wonder if something happened with his stepmom. It would be odd otherwise. There's no way Mark would come to see me without any reason. It can't be good. It's frightening to think he knows where I live. What should I do if we meet again? I returned home feeling indescribable. From the next day, I became vigilant when going out and coming home. Nothing unusual happened for a while, but the following week, I saw a figure at the entrance of the apartment building again. He hadn't noticed me yet, so I took a closer look, and indeed, it appeared to be Mark. It was just past 6 p.m. and still light outside, with occasional passersby in the residential area. I could call for help if something happens. Just in case, I had a personal safety alarm in my pocket. With my smartphone ready in my left hand, I approached the entrance. This time, the boy noticed me sooner and stood up.
Long time no see.
He came up to me, fidgeting and smiling. As expected, it was Mark.
Why did you run away last time?
What do you want? I cut off the conversation abruptly and asked bluntly, to which Mark's face turned sour.
That's cold. To see your son after such a long time.
What? I frowned, and for some reason, Mark looked surprised and confused.
Isn't it nice to meet after so long?
After the way we parted, you think I'd want to see you? It's baffling to think why he would assume I'd be happy. Rather, I had hoped never to see him again. So, what do you want? Mark hesitated before answering.
Help, Dad, please.
Dad, you mean Ryan?
Yes.
Mark began to speak quickly, as if pleading to be heard. After our divorce, Ryan remarried Nicole, the woman he had an affair with. They moved out of that apartment and both moved into Nicole's condo. Initially, they enjoyed being a happy family of 3, but gradually, Ryan and Nicole started to fight more often.
Dad is handsome, so naturally, he attracts a lot of women around him. Nicole doesn't like it.
Well, that figures. Ryan is a guy who cheats easily without any hesitation. Also, since Nicole herself was the other woman before, she knows well that she could be cheated on too. It's understandable she'd feel insecure.
Then, last month they had a huge fight, and Nicole finally left.
What? But isn't the place where you're living now Nicole's house?
It is, but anyway, she left.
I wonder if she went back to her family's place nearby, or maybe she moved in with a friend. Either way, she's an adult. I shouldn't worry about Nicole. Honestly, I don't really care. If you're worried, you could visit her at work or have Ryan look for her. There are ways to handle it.
That's why I came here. I thought you could help. Don't you get it?
Mark appeared to be frustrated. Apparently, he just happened to find my address. He saw me entering this apartment by chance and has been waiting for me on the days he could come since then. I see. It was just a coincidence. That's all I was worried about. I had been anxious that he might have searched for me on social media or something, but if it was a coincidence, that's a relief. Feeling clearer, I headed towards the entrance of the apartment. Mark, startled, quickly grabbed my arm.
Wait, where are you going?
I'm going home, of course. You should be grateful I even listened to you. We're strangers now. I don't owe you anything. Mark clenched his back teeth, looking frustrated. Then he managed to spit out.
You're heartless, even though you were a parent.
Well, but I don't recall giving birth to you, and we're not related by blood. I replied with a smile, and Mark's face turned dread. I took the chance to shake off his arm and rushed into the apartment.
Hey, wait.
I quickly unlocked the door, and just before Mark could follow, the automatic door closed.
Hey, don't mock me. Hey.
I'm not mocking you. I'm just annoyed, and if I see you again, I'll call the police. Don't come back. I wasn't sure if he could hear me through the automatic door, but from Mark's silence, he probably did. What a waste of time. Despite truly not caring about Ryan and his wife's situation, I received a call from Ryan just before going to bed. It had been 3 years. I answered the phone with a sigh of exasperation.
Long time no see. How are you?
Yeah, long time. I'm doing okay. So, what? You want me to help look for Nicole? I said sarcastically, and Ryan sounded surprised.
How did you know about that?
Mark came to my house to ask for help. Please don't drag me into your problems. Bye. I hung up abruptly. But when he called again right after, I reluctantly answered.
Why did you hang up?
Ryan sounded unusually irate, surprised that I had hung up. Isn't it the same thing as Mark? I wish you'd stop relying on others.
We're strangers. That's sad.
You cut people off so decisively but complain when it suits you. His selfishness made me laugh. Ryan seemed a bit uncomfortable, but he continued the conversation as if nothing had happened.
Nicole was always so irritated, telling us to get out. So I told her, then you should leave instead.
And she did just that.
Why do girls always change like that? They start out so cute.
I impulsively hung up the phone. I even feel sympathy for Nicole, whom I've never met. It seems we both married a terrible man. I wish I had left him sooner. I guess I have to tell Sophia about this to clear things up. I quickly set Ryan's number to reject calls, muttering to myself. Sophia laughed heartily when she heard the story.
Stupid men, right?
Right? I have a feeling he might still show up, which is annoying.
Some men are like that. Even after breaking up, they think they can still lean on their ex.
Sophia said, resting her cheek on her hand. It's curious how even that gesture is alluring. How should I do? I said I'd call the police, but I'm not sure how much that would restrain him. I'm not even sure the police would take it seriously if I actually called. As I was pondering, Sophia laughed and said,
Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Oh, right. That makes sense. Inspired by Sophia's advice, I decided to take action, despite my clear warning not to come. I sighed as I saw the duo sitting in front of my building. Then I called someone on my phone and walked towards the two with that person.
Hey, Jasmine.
Ryan called my name and then widened his eyes when he saw the person next to me. Mark was also frozen with a face just like Ryan's.
Why are you two together?
Oh, wanna hear? We hit it off. We both fell for terrible men. I smiled, and Nicole, standing next to me, nodded in agreement.
It's tough with these guys. They can do anything right.
Exactly. It's so much easier now.
These days, many guys can at least do household chores, you know.
Kids are more reliable than them. Ryan and Mark's faces turned bright red.
It's natural for a mother to take care of her children.
Well, we're strangers now, aren't we? You said it yourself. Also, you're an adult. What are you talking about?
Come on.
Ryan tried to interject, but we both glared at him. You're the problem, a reckless man. I yelled, and Nicole followed.
He's only good at being dependent. And despite being an old man, he always prefers younger women. Unbelievable.
Ryan and Mark fell silent. Their faces were strikingly similar. Mark, you better brace yourself. You seem to respect this man, but if you take him as a role model, you're not headed for a good future.
What?
Nicole is planning to sue for alimony. I kind of let it slide, but she's determined to dig deep. Ryan's face turned pale.
I was hesitating, but Jasmine, she helped me make up my mind. I don't want to see his face anymore.
Wait, Nicole, that.
Ryan, his mouth opening and closing, and Mark standing dazed, perhaps seeing himself in Ryan. Ignoring them, I took Nicole's hand. Shall we go?
Yes.
Ryan and Mark were in a daze, too shocked to even follow us. Nicole later divorced and claimed alimony from everyone involved.
I'm sorry about the past.
Nicole apologized for her role in breaking up my marriage with Ryan, and as a form of alimony, she handed me a substantial amount of money. I gratefully accepted. Ryan, sued for alimony by Nicole, lost his money and, from stress, his hair started thinning. He quickly became less attractive. Seeing this, Mark seemed frightened. I reported the whole saga to Sophia. It was also thanks to Sophia that I initially got in touch with Nicole. She found a former model who knew Nicole and connected us. Thanks to that, I now live in peace.
You've been looking great recently.
Yes, I've been going to Nicole's beauty salon. It's great there. Afterward, Nicole and I got along well. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Just like Sophia said, from now on, I'll focus on work and keep romance moderate. I'm aiming to be a top stylist.
I'll be happy enough for both of you.
My sister stole my husband, Mike. She sent me an invitation to her wedding with Mike, trying to show off, but
I'll go with your mom.
We're going to give them hell.
normally, my parents are kind and hardly ever get angry, but they've had enough of my sister's wrongdoing. They attended the wedding with a menacing smile, turning the celebration into a nightmare. I'm Victoria, 24 years old. I work as an illustrator. I was newly married, not even a year yet, and my husband, Mike, and I had a good relationship. I met Mike through friends, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. He proposed to me at a restaurant with a view of the night skyline. I remember our wedding being a joyful event. Family and friends offered their heartfelt congratulations, and there were smiles all around. One day, as I was about to send Mike off to work, I noticed he left his smartphone in the living room and brought it to him. Mike, you left your phone. I handed it over to Mike, who seemed a bit flustered as he took it.
Oh, thanks, that helps a lot. Gotta run.
Mike hurried out, but I felt a bit uneasy about his rush. That was the first sign. After that, he always carried his cell phone, even when he was at home. Despite my suspicions, I convinced myself that Mike wouldn't cheat. We had a good relationship without major issues, so I believed everything was okay. However, my trust would be shattered. One day, after hanging the laundry, I returned to the living room and noticed a notification on my phone. There was a message from an unknown account.
Hey, long time no see. How have you been?
It seemed like the message was from an acquaintance, but I've heard of scams in which the sender pretends to be someone you know. That's why I decided to ignore it. If it was important, they would call.
Just kidding. Don't ignore me. You've read the message, right? Ignoring your sister, that's just like you. Always so mean.
I closed my smartphone once. But when my phone rang again, I was surprised to see a message saying, "Sister," from an unknown number. Indeed, I have a sister, Susan, who is problematic in various ways. For example, money issues. Susan often borrowed money from friends for various reasons and then disappeared without repaying, which frequently led to me and our parents facing the consequences. And my parents were paying back on behalf of my sister. Then there's the complaint issue. Susan would immediately lodge complaints about even the smallest issues. She was an extremely troublesome complainer, hurling insults at people who came to apologize. And problems due to relationships with men. Susan likes men, and she likes to steal other people's lovers. She didn't care about her friends or relatives, she took ownership of the men she targeted. Indeed, because of her behavior, she frequently clashed with friends, causing trouble that often spilled over to me and our parents. I didn't want to have anything to do with my sister, and I lost touch with her after she left home. However, the message on my smartphone contained the word "sister." If this was my sister herself, I had a bad feeling and hesitated to reply, so I decided to leave it alone. Whether it was Susan or someone pretending to be her, I didn't want any involvement. But the ignored smartphone kept ringing annoyingly, so I decided to open it to block the number. To my shock, I found a message.
If you're going to ignore me, that's fine, but Mike is mine now, so let's get the divorce over quickly, okay? Thanks for finding me such a great catch. Mike won't return to you, so I'll send his divorce papers, alright. Get them filed soon.
At the same time, I received a couple-shot picture of my husband and Susan. Without needing further confirmation, I knew it was true. My hands trembled holding the phone, and I sat down abruptly. I felt my blood run cold, realizing how pale I had become as a great shock overwhelmed me. As Susan said, Mike never returned home, and only the completed divorce papers arrived. I tried to contact Mike, but he completely ignored me. My happiness was suddenly taken away, and I was overwhelmed by sadness, anger, and a whirlwind of emotions. I became emotionally unstable. Why? Mike. I cried every day. After a few days, when I had calmed down a bit, I decided to contact Susan. What's the meaning of this? Let me talk to Mike.
After ignoring me for so long, no greetings, no apologies. What do you mean? What's the meaning of this?
What? You're the one who should be apologizing. Just send Mike back here for now.
No way. He doesn't want to return. He loves me way more than he ever loved you. And why should I apologize? It's your fault for not being able to keep him.
Nothing I said got through to her. My mental state was at its worst, and I grew tired of worrying and thinking about everything. I've had enough.
Finally realized it's hopeless. He'll hate you more if you have feelings for him. If you resent it, resent your unattractiveness. Loser.
After this exchange, I closed my smartphone. I was fed up with dealing with Susan and had run out of patience with Mike, who had chosen her. Before I knew it, I found myself filling out the divorce papers. Thus, my marriage, which was supposed to be happy, came to an end. Afterward, my life became a mess. My mental damage was so severe that I couldn't eat and felt more tired than usual. My colleagues at work worried about me because I was so haggard. I said I was okay, but my mind and body were at their limit and I finally collapsed at work. When I regained consciousness, I was in the hospital with my parents and a close colleague by my side.
Victoria, can you recognize Mom?
Victoria.
Hearing their voices, my consciousness cleared. Looking around, I realized I was in a hospital and tried to recall my last memory. Well, I collapsed at work. My father sighed with relief.
We were shocked when the hospital called. Are you overworking yourself?
I knew that wasn't the case. It was probably the accumulated fatigue from the ordeal with Mike and Susan.
Yeah.
Maybe. As I said that, my mother pressed the nurse call button to summon a doctor. After being examined, it was decided that I should be admitted to the hospital for observation.
Did you eat well? Did you get enough rest?
My father bombarded me with questions, full of concern. As I assured him I was okay, my mother asked him to get some drinks and something easy to eat for everyone. He agreed and left the room.
Hey Victoria, something must have happened, right?
I thought so too. What happened to you? You seem to have lost weight recently. This has never happened to you before.
They say women have strong intuition, and it seemed true. I sighed and explained the situation to them. I found myself crying in the middle of the explanation. I overstepped my limits without realizing it. I thought I had settled it in my mind, thinking it's okay, but I guess I didn't really understand myself. As I forced a laugh, my mother tightly held my hand.
I had no idea all this was happening. Why didn't you tell us sooner? It's the first time I've heard about your divorce.
In front of your mother, I'm sorry to say, but is your sister sane? I can't believe it.
Both expressed their anger towards my sister, and I could feel their genuine concern for me. I didn't want to worry or bother anyone, thinking I could handle it myself. I didn't want to cause trouble or concern for anyone. I also felt embarrassed and thought there was some truth in what Susan had said. Maybe it was because I wasn't attractive.
That's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Anyone can see that what your sister and ex-husband did is unthinkable.
Nancy is right. You've done nothing wrong. I'm so sorry you've been carrying this burden alone.
Both looked like they were on the verge of tears. I regretted that I should have relied on them. My mother, considering my mental and physical health, suggested I come back home for a while. Given the doctor's advice that I needed rest, Nancy offered to handle the paperwork at my company along with my medical certificate. When my father returned with the drinks and I told him about resting at home, he immediately said I should come back soon. Later, Nancy managed to explain the situation well at work, and I received a message from HR saying, "You have plenty of paid leave saved up, so take your time to rest." After thanking Nancy, she told me, "You can always rely on me." I spent the next few days at my parents' home. Nancy came to visit, and I could see that my mind and body were recovering well. I realized that keeping everything to myself was not good. Today, Nancy came to visit again, and as we were enjoying cake prepared by my mother, my smartphone rang. When I opened my smartphone, my heart raced.
Hello. How are you doing? Thought you might be curious about what's going on with this, so I decided to give you a buzz.
It was Susan, who I hadn't been in contact with since the incident. Regretting my carelessness in checking the phone, my face must have given something away, as Nancy's expression changed.
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Well, yeah, I'm okay. I responded, but it was obvious something was off. Nancy asked if she could see my phone. Wanting not to worry her but remembering my resolution not to keep things to myself, I nodded and handed her the phone. Nancy's expression turned puzzled as she looked at it.
What is this? Is she picking a fight? It's your sister, right?
When I nodded in agreement with Nancy's words, she closed the smartphone.
Just ignore her, seriously, block her. You don't need to deal with people like that.
Following her words, I opened my phone again to block Susan. Just then, another message from Susan came through.
We've been living together smoothly since then. And guess what? I'm pregnant. You're probably thinking, so soon, but no, you see, Mike and I have been in a relationship for over 6 months.
The word pregnant made time stop for me. During our marriage, we were trying to have a baby. We hope to be blessed with our baby soon. This message tore at my heart, especially because we had been trying together. I burst into tears, and Nancy took my phone from my hand in surprise. After reading the message, she yelled out,
What? Unbelievable. I'm so furious I could explode. You should sue them.
Suing them in court. It was something I had considered when I first received her message. But I had lost the energy and had given up. I just don't want to be involved anymore. Hearing me, Nancy calmed down.
I'm sorry. I got too emotional. You're right. You don't want to be involved, and that's for the best.
Nancy comforted me by rubbing my back, and her kindness allowed me to cry freely for a while. Then, seeing my state, my mother came into the living room.
Hey Victoria, actually, I haven't told your father about this yet.
I understood what she meant by that. If my father knew, he would be furious.
But I think it's better to tell him now.
My mother's solemn words deeply resonated with me. I fell into deep thought.
I think it's better to talk about it too. This is just too much.
With Nancy's agreement, I decided to tell my father. My mother said she would talk to him, so I left it in her hands. When Nancy left and evening came, my father returned from work.
Well, something smells good. What's for dinner tonight?
Hi, welcome home, Dad.
I'm home.
According to my mother, my father had been in a better mood since I came back home. My father is a man who is seldom grumpy. But my father seems happy every day, so my mother told me that she is happy to have me back. Her words sincerely made me happy, and I felt grateful to have such a comforting place to be. However, today, with a serious expression, my mother began to talk to my father.
Welcome home, dear. I wish we could have a normal, happy chat, but there's something important we need to discuss.
Seeing my mother's expression, my father seemed to understand and became serious. Looking at me, he said,
It's about you, right? Let's hear it properly.
His face was kind, and just seeing it made me feel like crying. After I explained everything to my father, his expression remained calm, yet there was an aura of anger and fear.
I see. Victoria, Don't block her yet.
Really?
You don't have to read the messages, but wait before blocking her.
Following my father's advice, I nodded. There must be a reason for my father's approach, I thought. My mother also respected my father's judgment in such situations.
For now, Victoria, don't block Susan. Just ignore any messages. It might be good to inform Nancy, who has been supporting you.
I see.
Thank you for telling us. You're okay, Victoria. You have your dad and mom here, and Nancy too.
Comforted by my parents' kind words and smiles, I felt relieved and began to cry. Seeing me, my father and mother laughed. My heart felt incredibly warm. That night, I shared my discussion with Nancy, who responded with encouraging words.
It's great that you have such supportive parents. And you have me too.
Looking at the night sky, I truly felt the same. After the discussion, I decided to move out of my house. Although by moving, I mean returning to my parents' home. Nancy suggested this move since my workplace was within commuting distance from there, and it would be better for my mental health than staying in a house filled with bad memories. The rental contract was in my name, so I proceeded with the cancellation and sent Mike's belongings to his parents' home. On the day of the move, I also completed the mail forwarding process at the post office, successfully finishing the move. I bid farewell to the kind building manager with a smile and was able to leave cheerfully. Then, I began living at my parents' home and successfully returned to work. My colleagues were very concerned, but I was able to genuinely smile and assure them that I was okay. My boss also advised me not to overdo it, making me appreciate my supportive workplace anew. Several months later, I'm home. I arrived home. My mother greeted me with a serious expression.
Welcome back, Victoria. We need to talk. Please come to the living room as soon as you've changed.
Yeah. All right. Seeing my mother's serious expression, I sensed something was up. After changing into my casual clothes and going to the living room, I found my parents with puzzled looks, staring at a letter in front of them. I hesitantly took a seat and looked at the letter placed in front of me. An invitation.
Yes.
My father murmured in response. It seemed to be a wedding invitation, but I wondered why it was problematic. May I look?
Yes.
I picked up the invitation. When I checked the sender, to my surprise, it was from Susan and Mike. What? My exclamation slipped out unintentionally.
We forwarded your mail since you moved. Remember, this arrived at your previous address.
That's right.
No wonder both of their faces looked troubled. However, I felt surprisingly calm. I used to be greatly shocked, but now I'm just appalled by their actions.
Are you okay?
My mother expressed concern. My father also looked at my face. I'm surprisingly okay with this. Just looking at it makes me feel more astonished than anything. Though, I wonder how far they want to go in demeaning me.
That's right. Even though she's my daughter, this is beyond what I can tolerate.
I'm glad Victoria isn't too shocked, but this is definitely going too far.
I could almost see flames behind my parents, who were angry on my behalf. I was thankful for their support. It's addressed to me. I don't have to go, right? When I asked, my parents looked at me intently.
I'll go with your mom.
What?
We'll show them what hell looks like.
What? I was upset because it was the first time I had seen my usually gentle parents get so angry. But it's addressed to me.
Well, we're the bride's parents. We must attend.
Exactly right. It's our daughter's wedding, after all. Looking forward to it, right, dear?
Yes, indeed.
My parents exchanged smiles. I could only give a wry smile in response. When I told Nancy about this, she didn't seem surprised at all and said,
Aren't your parents right? If you're related to the bride and groom, you have to attend. But wow, a wedding, huh?
I could tell she was smirking even over the phone. The people around me are supportive but also intimidating when angered. On the day of the wedding. Are you really going? Is it okay? Watching my parents prepare to attend the wedding, I asked anxiously.
What are you worried about? Everything will be fine.
My mother said this with a smile, but her eyes weren't smiling, which made me feel uneasy. Both parents continued their preparations, unfazed by my concerns. Is this really okay? Despite my worries, I heard the sound of the car arriving. When I went to check if a taxi had been called, I saw a familiar car parked outside. To my surprise, Nancy emerged from the car. Nancy, what are you doing here? I exclaimed, opening the door. Nancy, dressed in a party outfit, looked radiant.
Good morning. Are your parents ready?
Just answer my question first.
I'm going to the wedding, you know?
What? As I stood there in shock, my parents came out of the house. When I asked what was going on, it turned out that one of Mike's relatives was a friend of Nancy's. After learning about the situation, they arranged for her to attend the wedding as that relative's girlfriend. My parents didn't object. Instead, they seemed to think it was a good idea to go together. As I wondered what they were all thinking, Nancy said,
I can just sit by after what happened to Victoria.
I got it. Despite my anxiety, I responded that way. Then, my father, mother, and Nancy left for the venue in the same car. I started to feel maybe I should have gone too.
If you want to see, I can show you via video call.
However, perhaps sensing my feelings, Nancy said that to me. I decided to indulge in their offer and stay home alone. But curiosity got the better of me, so I contacted Nancy and asked her to connect me via video call. Upon arriving at the venue, my parents and Nancy headed to the reception. Thanks to Mike's relatives' arrangement, Nancy's name was on the list, but my parents, not having been invited, were not listed. The receptionist, flustered, said they would check, and just then, Susan arrived. Seeing my parents, Susan was visibly shocked and unsettled.
Why are you here?
Well, we are your parents, so of course we came.
There was some mistake, and we didn't receive the invitation.
My parents replied. Susan forced a smile.
Well, the invitation was actually for Victoria.
Yeah, I was surprised when Victoria told me. I had no idea about the wedding. We came because Victoria said she couldn't make it due to work.
It's fine to send an invitation to Victoria, but you should have sent one to us too. It doesn't look good if the bride's parents are absent, does it?
My father repeatedly mentioned the absence of their invitation. I couldn't see my parents' faces through the video call Nancy was sharing, but I could imagine their expressions.
Yes, that's right. I'm your daughter, after all. You must be happy for me.
Susan, misunderstanding the situation, genuinely believed my parents came for her sake. I thought to myself what a naively optimistic person she was. When Mike appeared, he turned pale at the sight of my parents.
Relax, Mike. They came to celebrate with us. They must love me so much, especially after how Victoria acted.
Mike was relieved to hear Susan's words and greeted my parents with a smile. Mike's parents, my ex-parents-in-law, joined in, creating a friendly atmosphere. I remember being adored by my ex-in-laws, so it hit me a little hard to see them talking happily. I felt a slight shock, wondering if they were nice to me only because I was the son's wife. Maybe it was the right decision not to go. I murmured. After that, the scene shifted to the wedding ceremony and then to the reception. At the reception, Susan and Mike made their entrance, looking happily in love. Nancy occasionally asked if I was okay, and I found myself surprisingly unaffected, reassuring her, I'm okay. I was more concerned about her phone's battery life, so when I mentioned it, Nancy assured me not to worry because she had brought a portable charger. How well prepared she was. And when it came to the thank you speech for her parents, Susan became impatient because she did not expect her parents to attend. Seeing it, my parents asked the MC for the microphone.
Today, we weren't supposed to be here, so it's understandable that Susan isn't prepared. Therefore, we'd like to surprise her with a message from us.
The audience applauded at my father's words. Susan, thinking she was being helped, smirked and clapped along.
Dad, I'm so happy.
The exaggerated gratitude was grating on my nerves. I continued to watch, feeling displeased. My father, with a sly smile, started something unbelievable.
Here's a surprise from my wife and me.
When my father spoke, the doors of the reception hall suddenly opened, revealing several men standing there. They all looked indignant. What's going on? I quietly watched, curious about the unfolding scene. Susan turned pale at the sight of these men.
Our Susan, being so charming, seems to have garnered affection from many men. Being kind-hearted, she appears to have responded to all their feelings. Truly, we are very proud of her. These gentlemen wanted to surprise her today, so we brought them here.
Wait, Dad, how did you?
Susan, I had no idea you had such a considerate side. Now, graciously accept this surprise.
Following my father's words, men surged onto the stage, their anger palpable. One of them grabbed Susan's arm as she tried to flee and said,
After all the other men, now you're getting married.
How much do you think I've spent on you?
Pay back the money I lent you.
Shouts and accusations filled the air. Susan turned pale and was on the verge of tears.
Wow.
Nancy remarked calmly while I was in shock.
What's going on?
Mike also spoke up and confronted Susan, but she was too shocked and disturbed to respond, her pale, unsettled appearance clearly visible. Then, my mother took the microphone and announced,
There's another surprise. As my husband mentioned, our daughter Susan is quite popular with women too.
Following her words, several women in attendance stood up.
We've also invited some ladies who eagerly wanted to see Susan.
Next, following my mother's lead, several women approached Susan, closing in on her.
You stole my man, and now you want a happy ending for yourself?
You need to pay me alimony for cheating with my husband.
As soon as I lent you money, you cut off all contact. Pay it back now.
The situation was total chaos. The reception hall went beyond buzzing to downright infernal. I thought the guests would be shocked, but few of them were buzzing, and they were all appalled at her. My parents, still smiling through it all, were terrifying in their own right. And I understood my parents' evaluation of my sister. In the midst of this battleground, a person took the microphone.
Susan, we are impressed that such a charming person is our son's bride.
Surprisingly, my ex-mother-in-law made this unexpected remark. As I wondered what she was talking about, she continued.
It may not match the wonderful surprise prepared by Susan's parents, but we have also arranged a surprise.
Mike, stunned by his mother's words.
What are you talking about, Mom? Can't you see what's happening?
Ignoring Mike's attempt to calm the situation, my ex-father-in-law took the microphone.
Firstly, we would like to thank Susan's parents for their fitting surprise. I run a company, and I had decided to remove Mike from his successor position. That's our surprise.
What?
No way.
Susan and Mike were dumbfounded by his announcement. I knew from my marriage that my ex-father-in-law was grooming Mike to take over his business. I'm also surprised by the statement that he is going to change that.
What are you talking about, Dad?
You made your decisions. You chose to cheat, to divorce, and to remarry. You've managed all that, so we think you're better off starting your own business.
It's supposed to be me, the successor. You're joking, right?
Mike was wide-eyed and panicked at his father's words.
We're serious. You're already capable of standing on your own. Use that judgment to carve out your life, especially now that you have the wonderful Susan with you.
That's right. I'm proud to have a son who can make such self-centered decisions.
I can't close my mouth from being open in surprise. My ex-in-laws, like my parents, appeared to be smiling, but their eyes were not laughing. Their insides were quite angry. Nancy, overhearing this, chuckled mischievously.
It's so satisfying. I can barely keep from laughing.
I'm just speechless. When I said that, Nancy started telling me all sorts of things. While I was away, my ex-in-laws had come to apologize. They really thought of me as their own daughter. Also, my parents and they had together planned this surprise revenge. Nancy had been in touch with my parents and had also heard from Mike's relatives, so she knew everything. Hearing this, tears came to my eyes, realizing I had so many allies.
You're not alone. So many people care about you and won't stay silent when you're hurt.
Yeah, I replied, crying and nodding. Thank you so much. I managed to express my gratitude, seeing my parents and ex-in-laws smiling kindly on the screen. It was a chaotic situation at the venue, and the ceremony staff tried to stop it. Then, a man stood up and approached the stage. The man stood in front of Mike. Mike turned pale at seeing the man and then collapsed on his knees. The man seems to have said something to Mike. Then, the man returned to his seat. What did that man say to him?
Can't tell from here without a microphone. Let's go ask him directly.
Nancy said, taking the phone to the man.
Excuse me.
As Nancy approached and he turned around, I gasped. Nicholas. Yes, he was Nicholas, my father's brother, which was my uncle. Nancy showed my uncle the screen, and upon seeing me, he was surprised and delighted.
Victoria, is that you? Are you doing well? I heard about today from your father. You had a hard time.
Thanks for worrying me. But I'm okay. By the way, what did you say to Mike?
Well, I told him I'll be suing for damages since this is my hotel, and the wedding reception has caused quite a mess.
My uncle's words made sense to both Nancy and me, and that's why Mike turned pale. After a bit more conversation with my uncle, I felt reinvigorated. Though Nancy tried to show me Susan through the video call, the crowd was too dense to see her clearly. The wedding had transformed from a celebration into something else entirely. I noticed many guests, including some of Mike's colleagues, beginning to leave. All of his colleagues left the hall looking puzzled. I took it for obvious, but my mind cleared. The wedding ended disastrously, with Susan and Mike looking drained and pale.
Then, the bride and groom will exit.
The MC announced, by which time most of the guests had gone, leaving only our parents, ex-in-laws, Nancy, and some of Mike's relatives to applaud. When my parents returned home, they were accompanied by Nancy and Mike's parents. I was a little surprised, but I apologized to my ex-in-laws. I'm sorry for not being in touch. Despite your kindness, I regret that the divorce happened this way without proper communication. I apologize for that. I had felt guilty for not apologizing to them after the divorce, so I took this chance to do so. Then, my ex-in-laws, with tears in their eyes, placed a hand on my shoulder.
We're the ones who should apologize.
My ex-in-laws told me, but I also thanked them for loving me while I was married to Mike. Afterwards, we all had tea and had a friendly chat, and we parted amicably. This was the end of everything, and I felt refreshed. Days later, while at work, my phone rang. Upon checking, there was a message from Susan. Remembering I hadn't blocked her, I checked the message, which was full of complaints.
You ruined our wedding. Take responsibility. You must have ratted us out to the parents, right? Are you that jealous of me? Just because you're miserable, don't push it on to others, you pathetic, envious loser.
I pondered, then asked Nancy beside me. Can I still claim alimony for his cheating?
Sure thing. She kept sending the evidence.
Exactly. I felt completely liberated and decided to hire a lawyer to file for damages. I saved all the messages and images Susan had sent and replied to her. Thanks for all the evidence of the affair. Expect a call from my lawyer, and please stop contacting me directly.
Lawyer, what are you thinking? Stop it.
Susan panicked, trying to delete her messages and images. But I informed her I had saved everything, which visibly shook her, and she began to apologize.
Sorry, it was all lies. I'll even give Mike back. Just stop saying horrible things. Please spare me the alimony. I'm already in debt.
It's none of my concern. I don't want Mike, and honestly, maybe it's good you took him. I don't need a man who cheats. Thanks for saving me from him, Susan. I sent that and cut off contact. After blocking Susan, she tried to reach out through different accounts, which I also blocked. I consulted with the lawyer I was referred to and submitted the evidence. Action was taken promptly. After the lawyer got involved, the next contact came from Mike. He had trouble with Susan and sent me a message wishing me to get back together. I didn't reply and blocked him. He contacted my parents saying, "Let me talk to Nancy," but my parents handled it. However, he was probably scared of my parents and never heard from them since. Eventually, Susan and Mike agreed to pay the alimony, as informed by my lawyer. For a while, Susan tried to use her usual tactic of arguing and complaining, but such methods were ineffective against the lawyer. She seemed to realize that she had no chance of winning and finally agreed in depression. Mike didn't admit it at first, but when he found out Susan had sent me evidence, he turned pale. I regret that these two people hurt me, but I had so many people protect me, and now I have nothing but thankfulness. Later, Susan and Mike divorced. Susan, having no one to rely on, tried to contact our family once, but my parents declared estrangement. Susan hung up the phone in tears. Mike, after becoming the subject of office gossip due to the wedding debacle, felt uncomfortable and eventually resigned. Unable to return to his family home, he is now getting by with part-time jobs. As for me, I received a promotion at work due to high performance. I met someone in a new department and started a forward-looking relationship with him. Nancy is also getting along well with Mike's relative, and we often share our happy stories. We're planning a trip with my parents, Nancy, and even my ex-in-laws next month. Although I once felt like I had hit rock bottom, I am now happier than ever before.
Yeah, we've finally done. That took forever. Let's go home quickly. Jackson and Mason, your dad has gone now. So I don't have to care for you two anymore, right?
Shortly after my son Matthew's funeral was conducted, his wife, Emily, said the unbelievable words. What was she thinking when she said such things? I wonder what she would say to Hurtwin, Jackson and Mason, who is in the midst of grief over the loss of their father. The parent of these kids are only you now. Think about it carefully.
What? I'm going to remarry a handsome doctor. Let the old lady raise the twins. See you.
While I was confused, Emily spat out selfish lines and left gracefully. The attendees and I were taken aback by the sudden turn of events. Fine then. After Emily left, I muttered quietly, I'll take care of Jackson and Mason. After finishing the tumultuous funeral and returning home, I finally crawled into bed and let out a deep sigh. I've never felt a day drag on this long. I'm exhausted beyond belief. My eyes naturally close.
Ha ha ha. Giggle giggle.
At 2 a.m., Eerie laughter emanates from the next room, waking me up. Opening the door, in the darkness, two faces illuminated by the pale glow of the screen. There were Jackson and Mason, supposed to be grieving, laughing heartily at the computer screen. I'm Mia. I've been living alone in this house since my beloved husband passed away 3 years ago. My only joy is when my adorable grandsons come to visit. Today, I'm restless and can't seem to calm down since it's the day Jackson and Mason, my grandsons, are coming over to play after a long time. Even though I finished preparing lunch, I felt like something was missing and ended up wandering around the room. That's right, the camera. My grandchildren, who just started elementary school, said they would show me their school uniforms. To capture their special moment, I started rummaging around for the camera. Found it. Now everything's ready. Just as I finally breathed a sigh of relief, I heard the sound of a car engine stopping in front of the house.
Grandma, hello. Hello.
Cheerful voices came from the direction of the entrance. Hello, you two. You came just in time. As I replied, I hurried to the entrance, where Jackson and Mason stood with shiny backpacks and crisp uniforms. Following them were my son Matthew and his wife Emily.
Mom, we're home.
Hello, Mia. Long time no see.
Welcome, come on in. I welcomed my son's family and had a photo shoot. My grandchildren, carrying bags slightly bigger than their bodies, looked adorable. I couldn't tell if they were carrying the bags or if the bags were carrying them.
Grandma, guess what? I was in a different class from Mason. I had a male teacher, and Jackson had a female teacher.
Yes, my grandsons are twins. My only son Matthew married Emily 8 years ago, and to our surprise, they were blessed with twins not long after. I suddenly had 2 grandchildren. I remember feeling so happy. However, I was surprised when my son came to me to report that he was marrying Emily. Originally, because Matthew had a calm and serious personality, and he had spent his student days quietly, I never imagined he would choose a beautiful and sharp woman like a model. Thanks to that, the twins who were born also have distinct and well-defined features. They might be what you call good-looking. Emily was eager to make the most of their good looks, so she was desperate to get Jackson and Mason into the entertainment industry by sending them to dance school and having them audition. When they first started kindergarten, it seems Jackson and Mason didn't understand what was going on and just went along with it, attending dances and auditions. Recently, I've been wondering how they've been doing while preparing meals in the kitchen with Matthew. When Emily went to the car to fetch something she forgot, Matthew quietly started talking.
Mom, actually.
It seems to be about Jackson and Mason.
When they first started elementary school, they really didn't want to dance anymore, and they hated being on TV. They rebelled against it a lot, and for a while, their relationship with Emily wasn't great.
They seemed to become more assertive and expressed their feelings to Matthew and Emily. Jackson and Mason, much like Matthew, were not comfortable with being in the spotlight.
Emily was desperate to keep them going, but they ended up quitting everything for Jackson and Mason's sake. It could have led to a tense atmosphere between us, but things are fine now.
Just as I was concerned about their recent behavior, but hadn't had the chance to ask, Matthew quietly confided in me, away from Emily and the two boys. They seem to be working hard to adjust to school life now. As we gathered around the table, listening to Jackson and Mason talk about their school experiences, I felt relieved to see that they were enjoying themselves. Though I had worried about their reserved personalities, it was reassuring to see them happy. After a hearty meal and a lively conversation, as Jackson and Mason left with smiles on their faces, I felt a sense of happiness wash over me. And a few months later, Mason's family of 4 came to visit again. What new things have Jackson and Mason learned recently?
I managed to animate a drawing I made on the computer the other day. I'm in the middle of learning C programming language.
I'm sorry, I have no idea what you guys answered, but you two are able to do some amazing things. Lately, 2 boys have been obsessed with using computers rather than playing sports. I'm not at all knowledgeable about computer stuff. But from what I've heard from Matthew, it's clear that Jackson and Mason are much more skilled with computers than kids their age. Both Matthew and I believe in their computer talents and have high hopes for their future. Matthew is even looking into nearby programming classes.
Instead of boring old computers, they could become famous and make money by appearing on TV.
Emily didn't seem too thrilled about the boys being interested in computers. Perhaps she hadn't completely given up on the idea of getting them into showbiz.
It's fine, isn't it? Let the kids do what they love.
Matthew said, trying to reassure Emily. In my heart, I nodded, thinking that the greatest happiness is letting grandchildren do what they love and grow freely. As time passed, Jackson and Mason entered 6th grade. They were still engrossed in their beloved computers and seemed to have completed all their programming class studies from a few years back. Lately, Matthew has been traveling a lot for work, so he's often away from home. Because of this, Jackson and Mason often come over to my house, since Emily's work keeps her busy, and she ends up having to leave the kids alone.
Dad's never home, so it's boring not being able to go out. We made plans to go camping next weekend, but I wonder if he'll really come.
Dad's just really busy with work, right? Since he's missing out on playing with you two, we gotta cheer him on for trying his best. Due to Matthew's busy schedule, there hasn't been much time to spend together, and Jackson and Mason seem a bit dissatisfied. Earlier, Matthew was excitedly talking about being interested with a make-or-break project for the company. Now that the project is finally underway, he's working hard with his colleagues. Even during the day, I've started taking care of Jackson and Mason overnight. At first, I accepted, thinking it would give Emily a little break since she's mostly juggling work and childcare on her own. However, with each of Matthew's business trips, Emily has started staying out overnight. I was more than happy to spend time with my grandsons, but it seemed like she was staying out too often. They are in 6th grade, so I don't think they need that much care, but I wonder if she is having a hard time with them.
Mia, please take care of the kids again today.
With a swift exit, Emily was gone. Today, Jackson and Mason are staying over again.
Oh no, I forgot the cold medicine.
Looks like you've caught a cold. That's not good, since she just left. Should I call Emily and ask her to bring it? I called Emily's number. It rang several times without an answer. Finally, the announcement came. The number you have dialed is either switched off or out of range. Emily wasn't picking up. Your mom didn't answer the phone. What should we do about the medicine? Hopefully, it doesn't get worse.
Oh, I know Mom usually turns off her phone for important stuff.
Jackson's words made me ask back without thinking. What? So, you mean you can never reach her during important matters?
Yeah, no matter when I call, she never picks up. I'm not that sick, so I'll be fine, Grandma.
Both of them seemed calm compared to my anxiety. But what if there's an emergency regarding the kids, even during an important matter? So far, nothing serious has happened, and these kids are safe, but could this be considered child neglect? Feeling sorry for Jackson and Mason, who don't seem to get any attention from their mother, I spent the day feeling a bit frustrated. The next night, when Emily came to pick them up, I asked her, "Emily, Mason forgot his medicine, so I called a little after you left. Did you find it hard to pick up the phone?"
Oh, sorry about that. I turned off my phone. Didn't the kids tell you?
Emily replied without a hint of apology, as if it were perfectly normal. "Oh, I see, but you might want to keep it on just in case something comes up and we need to reach you." I was taken aback by Emily's attitude and couldn't say anything more. After that, Jackson and Mason stayed over several times. While I was looking after them, I called Emily's cell phone several times for various reasons, but as usual, she didn't answer. Then one afternoon, I received a call on my cell phone from an unknown number. I didn't recognize the number. With trepidation, I answered the phone, and I heard the voice of a panicked man on the other end.
Hello, is this Matthew's mother? I'm Matthew's colleague. I'm sorry to bother you suddenly. Please calm down and listen. Matthew is currently in the hospital.
It took me a moment to comprehend the words coming from the phone. Suddenly, anxiety flooded over me. I asked his colleague for the location of the hospital and hurriedly called a taxi. Even on the way there, I couldn't calm down because I didn't know Matthew's condition. What happened to make him end up in the hospital? Is he okay? Wait, does Emily know anything about this? I decided to call Emily for now. Despite my desire for her to pick up, I was greeted by a long dial tone. Then the announcement came, "The number you have called." Even in times like these, not being able to get in touch with Emily, what on earth is she doing? While praying for her to pick up the phone, I kept calling over and over again, but the result was always the same. I kept trying to reach her while on the way to the hospital, but she never answered. When I arrived at the hospital, a tearful colleague greeted me and informed me of the situation. It seemed that Matthew had suddenly collapsed at work, and had been rushed to the hospital. Despite receiving necessary treatment, his condition was critical, and he still hadn't regained consciousness.
I tried calling his wife several times, but she never picked up. So I contacted you instead. Thank you for coming so quickly.
Emily didn't answer the phone after all. It turns out that Matthew had been suffering from insomnia recently and had looked unwell, causing concern among his colleagues. Was it because he was so busy with work that he couldn't sleep well, or did he push himself too hard? I regretted Matthew's earnest nature. For now, I felt I had to let Emily know the situation, so I decided to head to Matthew's house. I left the hospital with a heavy heart, worried about Matthew's condition. When I arrived at Matthew's house, Jackson and Mason, who had just returned from school, were home alone.
Grandma, what's wrong?
You're back. Has Mom not come back yet?
Not yet. Are you waiting for her at home?
I debated whether I should tell Jackson and Mason about Matthew. Is it okay for me to tell them? I decided to wait until Emily got back and explain it to all three of them together. After a while, Emily returned. Emily, did you check your phone? I called you so many times. Emily rummaged through her bag and pulled out her phone.
Mia, what's going on? Oh, I have a missed call. Is everything okay?
Despite feeling irritated by Emily's attitude, I took a deep breath and told her. Emily, Jackson, and Mason, listen carefully. Matthew collapsed at work today and is now in the hospital. The doctors did various treatments, but he still hasn't regained consciousness. Jackson and Mason remained frozen in surprise, their faces showing shock from the sudden news. On the other hand, Emily, without changing her expression, just exclaimed and continued fiddling with her smartphone. I expected her to be more surprised and worried, but her reaction, or lack thereof, caught me off guard. My bewilderment didn't seem to register with Emily, who was engrossed in her phone. And so, the days passed one by one. Despite our wishes for him to wake up, Matthew remained unconscious. The doctors informed us that there was little hope of him regaining consciousness, and we had to prepare ourselves for the worst. Several days later, Matthew's funeral took place. Jackson and Mason stood silently, their heads bowed, tears streaming down their faces. Despite being mature for their age, they were still just sixth graders. Losing their beloved father, they were undoubtedly at the depths of sorrow. All I could do for them was to offer my support, gently patting their backs as they mourned. Emily, without paying any mind to the children, sat there looking very sluggish, greeting curtly to the attendees. The funeral was attended by many of Matthew's colleagues and superiors from work. Each one mourned Matthew's departure, with most of them wearing expressions of frustration or shedding tears. Seeing how important my son was to the company fills my heart. But it's strange. After the funeral, I overheard some of Matthew's coworkers talking on their way home, and something about their conversation bothered me.
Just when the project was finally getting on track and settling down, why did he have to pass away so suddenly?
Even though he hadn't been working overtime lately, his face looked unusually worn out. He mentioned not being able to sleep. I wonder what was weighing on his mind.
These words stuck with me and have been circulating in my head. I thought Matthew's condition was due to his busy work schedule. But none of his coworkers mentioned anything like that. On the contrary, it seems like work had been calm lately, and they were concerned about Matthew's recent behavior. If it wasn't work-related stress that led to his insomnia, then what else could it be? With those doubts in mind, we reached the end of the funeral.
Yeah, we've finally done. That took forever. Let's go home quickly. Jackson and Mason, your dad has gone now. So I don't have to care for you two anymore, right?
After the funeral, Emily said mockingly, "I don't think those are words to say to your own children with that kind of expression." What was she thinking when she said that? It's hard to understand why she would say such things to Jackson and Mason, who are in the midst of grieving for their father. I thought it was a mistake and asked again, "Emily, what do you mean all of a sudden?"
With these kids around, they're just a nuisance to me. I don't need them.
The parent of these kids are only you now. Think about it carefully. I thought Emily was just confused and tried to reason with her.
Think about it. There's nothing to think about. This is so convenient. Now I can live with my boyfriend.
Boyfriend? Who's your boyfriend, Emily?
I'm marrying a handsome doctor. Let the old hag take care of the twin brats. See ya.
While I was still bewildered, Emily uttered those selfish words and left in a swift manner. The attendees and I were taken aback by the sudden turn of events. Fine. After Emily left, I muttered under my breath, "I'll take responsibility for Jackson and Mason. It's better for them to grow up in an environment where they won't be abandoned by their mother and suffer sadness. Moreover, I'm lucky to be able to live with such adorable grandchildren." When I made up my mind like that in my heart, Jackson spoke up.
"Grandma, can we live with you?"
"Of course, that's fine." Jackson smiled relievedly.
"It's better to live with Grandma than with Mom. She's never at home anyway. I don't think she cares about us."
Mason's words pained my heart. Was Emily really so indifferent to the two kids to make them say such things? After stopping by Matthew's house, I packed Jackson and Mason's belongings, and we finally returned home. After finishing dinner, both Jackson and Mason seemed tired, with little conversation and sleepy looks. Today must have been exhausting both physically and mentally. After bidding farewell to their father, their mother left them behind as well. I wonder if Jackson and Mason are okay emotionally. They seem calm, as if they've accepted the sudden turn of events, but I can't help but worry about what's going on in their minds. Instead of nagging, I'll just have to keep an eye on them for a while. Both of you must be tired today. Get some rest tonight, you too. Once the cleanup was done, I also wanted to rest as soon as possible. While doing chores, Jackson and Mason were no longer in the living room. They must have finished bathing and returned to their room. Finally, I slipped into bed and let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, I found myself recalling today's events like a movie reel flashing before my eyes. Is Emily really serious about letting go of the kids? Despite the late hour, I felt the need to confirm my feelings, so I called Emily again.
The number you have dialed.
I was hoping she'd pick up, but instead, I heard the familiar automated message. Today felt longer than any other day, and I was terribly exhausted. My eyes began to close on their own.
Ha ha ha. Giggle giggle.
At 2 a.m., I was awakened by laughter coming from the next room. Was I hearing things, I wondered, but the laughter persisted. Jackson and Mason were supposed to be asleep in the next room. Thinking they should be asleep, I gently approached their room to check. As I opened the door, I saw two faces illuminated by the blue glow of a computer screen in the darkness. Jackson and Mason, whom I thought were asleep, were actually giggling while looking at the computer. What's going on here in the middle of the night?
Oh, Grandma, did we wake you up? Sorry. Yay, Grandma, take a look at this.
As instructed, I peered at the computer screen. Emily, darling, whose chat history is this, anyway?
It's Mom and her boyfriend's chat history.
Displayed on the computer screen was the chat history between Emily and presumably her boyfriend.
I bet notifications are coming to your phone right about now.
Upon hearing that, I went to fetch my cell phone and checked it. Sure enough, there were notifications. When I opened them, I saw the same chat history from the chatting app on the computer screen. How did this happen? Did you guys do this? They answered with innocent looks on their faces.
Yeah, we did it. By now, everyone in Mom's phone contacts list should have received the images.
What's going on? I couldn't make sense of it, so I asked the two what was going on.
I think Mom's the reason Dad collapsed.
It seemed that Matthew had some doubts about Emily lately, as she had been spending a lot of time away from home. Matthew was pressing Emily about where she had been and what she had been doing, but she was avoiding the questions entirely. Jackson overheard.
We're still kids, you know. Dad must have been worrying about something, but he never said anything to us.
Matthew seemed troubled by Emily's frequent absences, and the fact that she kept leaving the kids with me each time.
Sometimes when I slept with Dad, I heard him groaning in pain, and I'd wake up. Maybe he couldn't sleep because of that.
It seemed he had noticed his father's stress and lack of sleep, whether it was just a child's intuition or not.
But you know, the relatives and uncles all said it was because Dad was busy with work, even though it's definitely Mom's fault.
Jackson said, sounding frustrated.
I couldn't say it was Mom's fault at the funeral, because no one would believe a kid like me. So, I programmed Mom's phone after the funeral to show everyone the evidence.
No matter how much they appealed to the fact that Dad had collapsed, the adults wouldn't believe them. Moreover, they seemed to think that if they tried to speak the truth, Emily would stop them. It was surprising that they would expose things like this, even though they were good with computers. The way the two of them spoke so freely made me curious. However, even though she wasn't home much, I wondered how they managed to manipulate Emily's phone.
Mom's not good at using smartphones or computers, so we set it up for her. We remembered all the passwords and stuff. We also checked her messages while we were at it. so we knew who Mom was always talking to. Whenever Mom's with that guy, she really turns off her phone. So, we made sure information was sent when the phone was turned off.
So, if images are being sent now, it means her phone's off. Look, there's a lot of evidence we prepared being sent.
I checked the notifications on my own phone.
Those brats are going to Grandma's, so today and tomorrow I'm with Darling. Darling is handsome and talented, but Matthew's been working so hard and still doesn't get paid much. It's not even worth comparing. I might as well scheme about my husband's affair and get a hefty settlement if we divorce.
The stories were unbelievable. As I opened the notifications, there were also messages about Jackson and Mason.
I thought I'd earn big since I gave birth to such handsome boys, but neither of them has any intention of entering showbiz. They lack the drive. It's seriously unbelievable. I spent a lot of money sending them to dance classes and auditions, but it was all a waste. They're such ungrateful children.
What a terrible mother she is. She forced her ego on her children, and now she calls them ungrateful children. I truly feel sorry for those kids. And while I always knew Emily was a straightforward and clear-headed woman, I never thought she'd be so foul-mouthed and rude. I thought maybe she became rude due to heightened emotions at the funeral, but is this her true nature? Did Matthew know she was like this, or was he deceived? Learning about Emily's true nature was shocking. Despite my shock, Jackson and Mason seemed oddly relieved.
By now, our relatives and Mom's friends must be shocked.
A few days later, I received a call from Emily's mom.
I'm really sorry for what my daughter did. I don't even know how to apologize,
she said, sounding genuinely remorseful as she apologized repeatedly. While I couldn't undo what had happened, I accepted her apology and inquired about Emily's whereabouts. According to Emily's mom, after the revelations on that day, Emily had been cut off by both relatives and friends. Hence, nobody knew where she was or what she was doing. It made sense, after all. To be honest, there were days when I worried if it was the right decision to suddenly take in Jackson and Mason. But I felt relieved that we severed ties with Emily before she could disrupt their lives any further. I believe they can live happily without being involved with Emily. And rumor has it that the cheating boyfriend she was going to remarry left her because of her bad nature. However, that wasn't all. Because evidence of the affair had spread even to her friends, one of them apparently took it upon themselves to identify her partner. Surprisingly, it turned out that the guy also had a bad reputation for womanizing and was seeing multiple partners. Emily happened to be one of them. Furthermore, it was revealed that he wasn't actually a doctor, but just a regular employee at a small company. Other misdeeds of his had also come to light, and it seemed he was in quite a predicament. Some time later, I received a call from Matthew's company. They informed me that Matthew's death was being treated as a work-related accident, and therefore, compensation would be provided. I knew that Matthew's death wasn't the company's fault. Thus, I felt uneasy about both the accident being recognized as work-related and receiving compensation. Feeling that I couldn't simply accept the compensation in silence, I headed to Matthew's supervisor. "Thank you for coming to Matthew's funeral the other day. The truth is, his collapse wasn't due to work-related stress, but rather because of the stress from his wife." I explained the situation. After hearing me out, the supervisor looked surprised. However, he quickly returned to a serious expression.
"No, regardless of the reason, we would like you to accept the compensation. We see it as our final evaluation of Matthew."
The supervisor said so. It turns out Matthew had been on the verge of completing a project, and thanks to his efforts, the project was a huge success. Matthew's contribution was significant, and it wouldn't have been possible without him. This project became a significant turning point for the company's substantial growth, so they are very grateful to Matthew for it, but it seemed they couldn't express those feelings fully and regretted it. I was delighted that they valued Matthew so highly. Matthew's life, where he worked hard earnestly, wasn't in vain. If I could, I would want to directly convey to Matthew that the project was successful because of him, and that the company had expanded thanks to him. But that won't happen. While hoping that Matthew in heaven will receive some form of compensation, I decided to accept the compensation. The amount was more than enough for Jackson and Mason's future education. As Matthew wished when he was alive, I want both of them to grow up freely and pursue what they love. Eventually, they'll each have dreams. I don't want them to give up on their dreams just because they're living with me without their parents. I thought I'd keep this money carefully so that I can provide them with various choices when the time comes. With a heartfelt wish for them to become people who can contribute to society like Matthew, I resolved once again to raise 2 boys. From now on, the 3 of us will live happily while remembering Matthew.